Welcome to Peak Selects. Some people survive because they are lucky. Some survive because they are trained. But some survival stories are so extreme that they leave you asking only one question: how did they survive? Today, we are looking at 10 real survival stories that should have been impossible. From freezing mountains to the middle of the ocean, from deadly deserts to the Amazon rainforest, these are stories of people who faced situations where almost no one was expected to make it out alive. They were trapped, lost, injured, starving, dehydrated, and in some cases, completely alone. We are counting down from number 10 to number 1. And the final story is one of the most unbelievable survival cases ever recorded. 10. Harrison Akene, 60 HOURS underwater. In 2013, Harrison Akene was working as a cook on a tugboat off the coast of Nigeria. One night, the boat suddenly capsized and sank to the bottom of the ocean. Most of the crew had no time to escape. Harrison became trapped inside the wreck. But somehow, he found a small air pocket inside the sunken vessel. Now imagine this: total darkness, freezing water around you, no way to call for help, and the boat is sitting on the ocean floor. Hours passed, then an entire day, then another. By the time rescue divers arrived, they were not searching for survivors. They were recovering bodies. But while searching the wreck, one diver saw something move. It was Harrison's hand. He was still alive. He had spent around 60 hours trapped underwater in a tiny pocket of air. The terrifying part is not just that he survived. It is that everyone thought he was already dead, while he was still sitting in darkness, waiting. 9. Aaron Ralston, trapped by a boulder. In 2003, Aaron Ralston went hiking alone in Blue John Canyon, Utah. He did not tell anyone exactly where he was going. That mistake nearly killed him. While climbing through the canyon, a heavy boulder shifted and pinned his right arm against the rock wall. He tried to move it. Nothing worked. He shouted for help. Nobody heard him. He waited for hours, then days. His food and water ran out. His body was getting weaker. He knew nobody was coming because nobody knew where to look. After 5 days, Aaron made a decision that most people could not even imagine. To survive, he broke his own arm and used a small dull knife to amputate it. But even after escaping the boulder, he still had to climb down, walk through the canyon, and find help while badly injured. His story shows the extreme edge of human survival. When the choice was death or an unthinkable action, he chose to live. 8. Mauro Prosperi, lost in the Sahara Desert. In 1994, Italian athlete Mauro Prosperi entered the Marathon des Sables, one of the hardest races on Earth. The race takes place in the Sahara Desert. Extreme heat, endless sand, and dehydration are already dangerous enough. But during the race, a massive sandstorm hit. Mauro lost his direction. At first, he thought he would find the route again. But every step took him farther away. The desert is not just hot. It is silent, empty, and disorienting. He survived by trying to collect moisture, finding shade, and rationing anything he had. At one point, he even took shelter in an abandoned religious building. Days passed. Search teams were looking for him, but the Sahara is enormous. Eventually, Mauro was found alive after more than a week in the desert. 7. 6 days alone at sea. In 1982, Stephen Callahan was sailing alone across the Atlantic Ocean. Then disaster struck. His boat sank, and he was forced into a small inflatable life raft. He was completely alone in the open ocean. No land, no rescue ship, no guarantee anyone would ever find him. For 76 days, Stephen survived by catching fish, collecting rainwater, and repairing his raft when it was damaged. He had to deal with hunger, thirst, sun exposure, storms, and sharks circling nearby. The ocean was both his enemy and his only source of food. Most people would not survive a few days in that situation. Stephen survived for more than 2 months. When he was finally rescued near the Caribbean, he was weak and badly sunburned, but alive. His story is one of the clearest examples of survival through patience, discipline, and mental control. 6. 17-year-old Julianne Kirky was on a flight over Peru with her mother. The plane flew into a powerful storm and broke apart in the air. Julianne fell thousands of feet while still strapped to her seat. Against all odds, she survived the fall. But that was only the beginning. She woke up alone in the Amazon rainforest. She had injuries, very little food, no proper equipment, and no idea where she was. Most people would panic. Julianne used what she knew. Because her parents were biologists, she understood that following water could lead to people. So she found a stream and followed it. For days, she walked through the jungle while dealing with insects, wounds, heat, and exhaustion. Eventually, she found a small shelter used by local workers. They discovered her and got her help. She survived a plane crash and then survived alone in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. 5. Joe Simpson, crawling off a mountain. In 1985, climbers Joe Simpson and Simon Yates were descending Sierra Grande in the Peruvian Andes. Then Joe broke his leg. On a mountain, that is almost a death sentence. Simon tried to lower him down with a rope, but conditions became impossible. In the darkness and bad weather, Joe slipped over an edge and was left hanging. Simon could not see him. He could not pull him back up. If he held the rope much longer, both men could die. So Simon cut the rope. Joe fell into a crevasse. Somehow, he survived the fall. Alone, badly injured, and believed to be dead, Joe had to crawl and drag himself across the mountain. Every movement caused pain. He had no real chance on paper. But he kept moving. After days of crawling, he made it back to camp just before Simon was about to leave. This story is brutal because survival was not one big miracle. It was one painful movement after another. 4. Beck Weathers, left for dead on Everest. In 1996, Beck Weathers was climbing Mount Everest during one of the deadliest disasters in the mountain's history. A storm trapped climbers near the summit. Temperatures dropped. Visibility disappeared. Oxygen was limited. Beck collapsed and was left for dead. Other climbers believed he could not survive. But hours later, he somehow stood up. He was badly frostbitten, nearly blind, and barely able to move. Still, he walked back toward camp. His hands and face were severely damaged by the cold. His body had been pushed far beyond normal limits. But he survived. Everest is dangerous because it does not forgive mistakes. Above a certain altitude, even small problems become deadly. Beck Weathers survived after reaching a point where most people would never wake up again. 3. 133 days on a raft. During World War II, Poon Lim was working on a British merchant ship when it was sunk by a German submarine in 1942. He managed to reach a wooden life raft. Then he was alone in the Atlantic Ocean. He survived by catching fish, collecting rainwater, and using whatever tools he had. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. At sea, the body breaks down slowly. Hunger, thirst, salt water, sun, and isolation all attack at once. Poon Lim survived for 133 days. That is more than 4 months alone on a raft. When he was finally rescued near Brazil, he had accomplished one of the longest solo survival cases at sea ever recorded. His survival was not luck alone. It was adaptation. He learned how to turn almost nothing into enough to stay alive. 2. A plane carrying a Uruguayan rugby team crashed in the Andes Mountains. The survivors were trapped in freezing conditions with almost no food. Rescue teams searched for them, but after days passed, the search was called off. The world believed they were dead, but some of them were still alive. They faced cold, hunger, injuries, avalanches, and impossible isolation. Nando Parado lost family members in the crash, but he kept going. Eventually, he and Roberto Canessa made a desperate decision. They would climb out of the mountains and search for help. They had no proper mountain gear. They were weak from hunger. The Andes stretched endlessly around them. But they walked. After days of climbing and crossing brutal terrain, they finally found help. Their actions saved the remaining survivors. This story is not easy to hear because the choices they faced were extreme. But it remains one of the most famous examples of human endurance under impossible conditions. 1. Jose Salvador Alvarenga, 438 days lost at sea. At number 1, we have one of the most unbelievable survival stories ever told. In 2012, fisherman Jose Salvador Alvarenga left the coast of Mexico for a fishing trip. A storm hit. His boat was pushed far out into the Pacific Ocean. The engine failed. Communication was lost. He could not return. He was trapped in a small fishing boat drifting across the ocean. Days passed, then weeks, then months. He survived by catching fish, birds, and turtles. He drank rainwater when he could. His fishing partner did not survive. Jose kept drifting. For 438 days, he was lost at sea. That is more than a year. Eventually, he washed ashore in the Marshall Islands, thousands of miles away from where he started. Most survival stories last hours, days, or weeks. This one lasted over a year. That is why Jose Salvador Alvarenga's story is number 1. Because when you hear the details, it sounds impossible. But he survived. These stories are extreme, but they all show the same thing. Survival is not only about strength. It is about staying calm when panic would be easier. It is about making decisions when every option is terrible. And sometimes, it is about holding on one more minute, one more hour, one more day. From the ocean floor to the top of Everest, from the Sahara Desert to the Amazon rainforest, these people faced situations where survival should not have happened. But somehow, they made it out alive. So the real question remains, how did they survive? If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Peak Selects and watch the next video on screen.